Welcome to another edition of Radical Grace Radio.
I'm Pastor Gary Held.
My name's Matthew Pancake. This is episode 819, and for those of you that have been watching, we've got it on video on YouTube now. It's also on Rumble, by the way, and also listening on the podcast and any given radio station that's decided to pick us up. You know, that's the thing is we're on KNGN all the time. You know, in fact, that was the first station that we started running on. And I still call the folder that I save everything in KNGN.
Okay.
And that's shared. And, you know, anybody that asks, like people, here's what people do all the time. They say, we've got a little low power transmitter at our church. This is a thing that some people do. And they say, could we run your show? I mean, we've got some other shows on, but, you know, we've got some spots that are open.
Yeah.
Could we just run your show? And I know that it's probably the wrong way to do it. We should probably be charging for this. But we've always told people, no, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a low power transmitter, maybe all you're doing is transmitting, you know, in the area immediately around your church. But, you know, nobody's going to get in trouble.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, nobody's going to get in any trouble for that.
Yeah, so. Well, you're not going to get in trouble for us for running our show. Of course not. Let's put it that way. I don't know about anybody's particular setup, but you know, some of those transmitters are just powerful enough to get the FCC's attention. Well, but most of them aren't. So
yeah, most of them. I mean, during pandemic, I remember that when we weren't at all sure how this was going to work, one of the things that we did is we said, well, even after we start having services, there's going to be a number of people who they're just not comfortable being in the room with other people. And that's when we started doing the low power FM broadcast to the parking lot. Now, what we didn't know is we were actually going
broadcasting to the whole neighborhood.
Well, yeah, we were hitting more of the neighborhood than just our parking lot. But that was a happy accident.
Yeah. And one of our parishioners, in fact, I think it was the person that set it up, said that he could pick it up at his house. And
yeah, but he lived close to the
super
church.
Far away, but it's not as close as the parking lot. He's not just right outside the property line.
No, but I'm not even sure he was a full mile away. So
maybe
low power transmitter gets you out.
But if he was picking it up clear, which is what he said, then
good.
You know, it had some reach. So if there's anybody out there that wanted to do that and you're like, oh yeah, but just let me know, because the fact of the matter is the KNGN version of our show is exactly an hour long. I mean, exact. So you can plug it into a system and have that fit in, you know, not try to make it fit.
Yeah. And if your church is thinking about, you know, maybe we'd like to have a little broadcasting studio coming out from our church. What I recall was that the various hardware you needed wasn't the big deal. It certainly wasn't the expensive deal. A little bit more challenging was, if I recall, didn't we run the broadcast antenna, the transmitter antenna, into the steeple of the
I think that's what
on the roof
he said,
to get enough height? Yeah,
yep. And that
so you got to figure out how to get a clear line of sight past some of the tree lines and things.
Yeah, doing it that way, if I remember right, fixed it so that you didn't have to put something up and didn't have to get permission from the city to do work outside. You know, you can just run it straight. In fact, I think he did it from inside. They went up in the attic and did it.
Anyway, all kinds of interesting technical possibilities.
Yeah. But that's the thing that we do here. So radicalgraceradio.com. If you go there, you can find all of the shows. You can find them on YouTube. There's a section there for that. And there's another section there. We don't plug this often enough. And that is the donations button.
Yeah.
People do use it. So if you feel like what we're doing is something that you like, drop us some, something, because this stuff does cost some money. It does cost a little bit of money.
And, a little bit. And the last time we felt like we had, accumulated some resources and people were showing that this was going to be ongoing support. That's when we said, well, let's go ahead and get some camera equipment. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the next iteration would be.
Part of that was we got the camera equipment because, the pandemic happened. But,
sure.
But discovering that there are some like alternatives to the super, super expensive stuff, Yeah, that was what changed everything, because here we are, you've got a camera, I've got a camera, and finding that there are services like the Zencaster that, we can sit here and talk across and it automatically records everything. Boy,
Yeah.
things have changed a lot in just 5 years. And yeah.
If you're listening and you're work at a church, or you just think your own church could do something in this space, and you'd like to know how two guys who are not really experts, kind of by guess and by golly, figured it out, mostly on your part, granted, drop us a line. We'll share with you, what we have found sort of works, and maybe what is a better use of your time and resources than other things would be. So,
right. And if
Good.
anything that we say or talk about, or something that you see on the show on YouTube, if it tickles you, or if it doesn't, if it does the opposite, drop us a line. We still have an email address, lutheranDifference@gmail.com, but the website, radicalgraceradio.com, has a nice, easy form to fill out. You can send us stuff, and people do also use that. And sometimes people use a thing that we call the Christian News Roll, although I'm still struggling. One of these days I want to change the name of the so-called Christian News Roll, because it's more newsy than it is Christian, especially these days, since most of it winds up being political.
Yeah.
But it's a thing that we do because, we kind of like to give our perspective on this news from a more gospel-oriented perspective. So that is the beginning of the Christian News Roll. Here we go. So this one's getting passed around. I bet you can't guess why. A Catholic church in New York City has sparked controversy after hosting an art display titled "God is Trans, a Queer Spiritual Journey." Yep, it's a thing, which includes artwork that maps the, quote, queer spiritual journey. While some members of the church in St. Paul the Apostle, someone could spin in his grave, right? If they're supportive of the display, others feel that the church should not be promoting it. Some members of the congregation have expressed concern about the display. One member told the New York Post that the church should not be promoting this, and that it, quote, it seems like they're trying to force an agenda on others. Others have been more supportive, with one churchgoer saying that the church is very liberal, which is why I love this church. The pro-transgenderism display by artist Adao, and I'm sorry if I mess this up, Onechukwu, conflicts with the teachings of the Vatican. So says Pope Francis, who earlier this year said that gender ideology is dangerous, and said it blurred the differences between the value of men and women. In 2019, the Vatican released a document saying it's a fact that a person's sex is a structural determinant of male and female identity. Despite the controversy, though, the church has defended the display, saying it is an important exploration of identity and spirituality. The artwork's description says it focuses on 3 points: sacrifice, identity, and community. By the way, the Archdiocese of New York is investigating this, and this is what they said. If media reports are accurate, then we would have some concerns. When people
good to know.
When people say things like that, yeah, it's just,
All right.
yeah.
Well, the number 4 story is that the Washington Elementary School District in the Phoenix and Glendale areas of Arizona has agreed to pay $25,000 to Arizona Christian University, that's ACU, and reinstate its student-teacher partnership program after that university was cut off earlier this year because of its religious beliefs. The relationship has been an ongoing one for 11 years until the school board cut the ties because of the university's biblical stance. So in February 2023, the school board voted unanimously to end the partnership. They deemed that ACU's student teachers and their Christian faith were a threat to LGBTQ students. A lot of letters there, and the decision was met with, it was somewhat controversial. The decision did get met with some opposition and some criticism. They were people arguing that the move was discriminatory and in violation of the U.S. Constitution and the state laws that protect ACU's religious freedom. Well, anyway, the Alliance Defending Freedom representing the university in a lawsuit against the school district. And the school district has now agreed to pay the attorney's fees and allow the ACU students to teach in the district once again. Additionally, Alliance Defending Freedom will monitor agreement renewals to ensure that the district takes no discriminatory action in the future. ACU's president, Len Munsell, called the settlement, quote, a complete vindication of the rights of our students to be able to participate as student teachers in a public school district without fear of religious discrimination, close quote.
Well, that was pretty long, wasn't it?
It was long.
I thought that the thing about it is that's a follow-up story. You saw that back in February. Yeah, a whole bunch of people were all up in arms about, what do you mean there's Christian teachers here? That's dangerous. No, it's not.
Well, I mean,
nobody's died over it. So
here's we get to the commentary later on.
Okay.
But let's just go ahead.
Yeah. Number 3 story is a little bit faster, but one that's got a lot of people with their hands wringing. The Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination in the United States, experienced its largest membership drop in a century, losing over 450,000 members in 2022, according to a report by Lifeway Christians Resources. However, the report also showed positive signs, such as a 16% increase in baptisms and a 5% increase in in-person worship attendance. Lifeway Research Executive Director Scott McConnell attributed much of the decline to record updates on membership and the slow removal of non-participating members. The current membership of the SBC is around 13.22 million, which is still well above the 7 million reported in 1950, but a few million below the peak membership of approximately 16.3 million reported in 2006.
All right. Well,
yeah.
The number two story, prosperity gospel preachers. Okay, get ready. Who believe that private jets are essential to their ministry are going to have to dig a little deeper into their pockets now for taking some personal flights on ministry-owned aircraft, according to a recent tax rule update. Trinity Foundation, which is a watchdog organization that monitors religious fraud, reported that the Internal Revenue Service has increased the tax rate for non-commercial flights on employer-provided aircraft. And this was taken between January 1 and June 30th of 2023. What this means basically is you've got pastors, right, like Kenneth Copeland, who famously purchased a luxury Gulfstream 5 jet in cash, and then he asked for another $2.5 million for upgrades, right? That's all going to be donators' money, though. Now they'll have to pay, this sounds paltry, but $52.35 terminal charge for each personal flight, as well as up to 28 cents a mile, depending on the length of their flight. It's obviously per mile, depending on the length of the flight. That seems obvious. It's a small price to pay for the convenience of flying in style, but every penny counts when you're on a mission from God. Yes, right? It does. I don't know if you want me to read the rest of this, but
you don't have to. We can talk about it in just a second because there's more stuff to talk about. Okay, so the number 1 story, I just put it in number one because I want to come back to it. It's pretty quick. Usually that's what winds up happening. So former Fox News host, by the way, I said he was coming back, right? His host Tucker Carlson announced on Twitter that his new show will broadcast on Twitter. Claiming the social media platform is one of the few places that allows free speech. In his announcement video, Carlson criticized major media outlets for manipulating people by withholding facts and perspective, and he also accused Fox News of fraud and breach of contract, suggesting possible legal action. However, Elon Musk, whom Carlson mentioned as the platform's leader, clarified on Twitter that there's no official agreement. In other words, they didn't sign a contract. He stated this: Tucker is subject to the same rules and rewards of all content creators. And by the way, that's what Twitter Blue is all about. Carlson's video on Twitter has received more than 25 million views. I checked just a little bit ago, while Fox News ratings have dropped since his firing. And that is the end of the Christian News Roll. Yeah, buddy. So I wanted to come back to that, and it's not necessarily that I think that I want to watch this closely, what goes on with Tucker Carlson, not because I think his show is going to be the greatest thing in the world, but see, YouTube gets a lot of complaints by a lot of different people, especially the content creators. And one of the things that they bemoan all the time is there isn't a big competitor to YouTube. Everything else is smaller. Like when I was talking to you earlier, and I could not remember who the third was. So there's Rumble, right? And that's smaller, but yeah, it's kind of growing. And then there's the one that I couldn't remember, which I was suddenly reminded of, Vimeo. And that's really the only ones that there is. Twitter, if it makes the move to where they'll host videos and stuff like that, you can upload pretty big videos on there now. And when you're Twitter Blue, it can be 1080p. That's you know, I mean, there's 4K, but you know, most of the time most people do 1080p.
Yeah.
If they do that, then almost overnight it becomes a competitor to YouTube. And I would like to see how that's going to pan out. So like I would expect that they're going to be trying to find some extra server space someplace because 25 million individual streams of a show, or not a show, just a small clip. Okay. 25 million that you can handle. 25 million people now I'm not saying it would be that big, but 25 million people trying to watch a streamed show from someone like him. You might need some extra server space for that, some extra power.
Can we talk the whole issue of bandwidth?
Yeah. Because look, now do I expect it to be that big? No, but he was pulling over 3 million viewers on Fox, and this whole thing has really put his name out there. If it wasn't before, it was.
Well, it's put his name out there, and it's all with certain negative aspects as well. I mean, but yes, if you just want to talk about the measure of sheer celebrity. If he wasn't known before, he sure is now. So,
But the thing is I want to see how it pans out, partially because I want to know if we can use it. I mean, we already kind of use Twitter for it's like a de facto feed for the show. Like if you are following Twitter's Twitter feed, you're going to see every show pop up on there. It's actually almost the easiest way to listen to the show. Just hit that and it'll pop up and it'll play in the background. And you're good.
So I'm going to have to start really keeping careful logging of when I'm using the private jet for personal use as opposed to ministry use, because for tax purposes, you understand.
Right. Well, sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And the thing is everybody's covered, including religious organizations, because this is personal use.
That's right.
How they're doing it. So, Kenneth Copeland, he's going to see. Here's the thing: is like there's a terminal charge for each personal flight, which means that you land, there's a charge, and then you take off, there's a charge. Yeah, because you're going to be getting the terminal fee, coming and going. And then there's 28 cents a mile. Now, depending on how many miles you fly, that can add up.
Well, yeah. I mean.
Okay. They're not trying to be unfair about it. They're just saying, it's like, okay, so you like that big Gulfstream V jet that you bought from Tyler Perry, and you like all the upgrades that you put on it so that you can fly in style.
Just remember, here's the thing. I'm just going to say this, then we can move on if you're ready to move on. But so the people, the money he's using to buy these things, he got the money because people gave the money. They gave it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now here's the thing that I wish more people really thought about. The individuals, they were giving to God. Hagee and the other, these Hagee and these others, one way of looking at it is they're spending God's resources on something like this.
Personal
Not cool.
flights.
Well, I mean, I shouldn't say not cool. If it was really necessary, then I suppose something. Well, if it's necessary, it's necessary, and God reasonably could be expected to approve of it. But if you're just saying no, I'm a little too good to fly coach. I'm not sure about that. In fact, I'm very sure.
Does it have to be coach? I mean, look, let's put it this way. So you've done personal stuff and you've been paid by the church. If you flew first class, I wouldn't care. It'd be like, oh, he flew first class. Great. Because why not? I mean, it's in the long run, well, especially today, it's considering that coach costs a lot of money. You might as well say, all right, let's just get first class. Because then you got some elbow room and, you can do whatever. But you don't have a personal jet. I would not mind if pastors, if it was revealed, like if someone said tomorrow, 80% of pastors fly first class. I'd be like, okay, what about it? That's fine.
Well,
I'm fine
because
with
the
it.
argument would come back, 80% of the congregation members, they'll never fly first class. If they take a flight rather than a Greyhound bus,
Yeah,
they're
but
going to.
if they got together and said it's okay, then like who are we to say that, sorry,
Yeah.
it's not okay. I don't even go to your church and I'm passing judgment on you.
Passing because I can,
Because
right?
I can, because, social media and the internet and, stuff like that. I can just, gotcha. So anyway.
So here's the thing about the Washington Elementary School District, okay? And, you might say they're on again, off again, on again relationship with Arizona Christian University. And the idea that, well, you have student teachers who have, or they all share in these Christian beliefs and, they're shaped by the Bible, and we wouldn't want the students, the kids. It's for the kids, Matthew. We wouldn't want them to feel threatened. Here's the deal, boy. Let me tell you what. You change that from somebody who's a student teacher, 21 years old or 22 right out of ACU or wanting to graduate. You make that a Muslim student wearing a hijab who can't get a job because we're a little concerned about the students and how you would influence them, even if you don't talk about, Islam or Muhammad or anything like that. Just the fact that you're clearly, your presence in the classroom, that could be threatening. So now we're all of a sudden going to say no people who are of Muslim are allowed to teach in the public schools. Right. Oh my goodness!
The uproar would be, first of all, other Muslims would be in an uproar, but then there's people who they understand the principle as long as it doesn't cross certain lines, right? So Christianity's fair game, but Islam not so much, for whatever reason. See, I've made the claim that like people are a little more afraid of Muslims than they are Christians. Because, Christians say, that like it's all supposed to be about peace and we're supposed to turn the other cheek and all that stuff. You so much as look askance at a Quran and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't know because it really doesn't.
But the don't know part is the hard part.
Okay,
though.
So could you have somebody? I mean, could you have somebody who is obviously a church going? They're they come from part of the country where this is Bible Belt country or whatever.
Right.
You could imagine. I'm not saying this would be common, but somebody becoming perhaps violent if they saw you intentionally desecrating a Bible, maybe burning it or doing something worse with it. And well, why? Because they feel that that's a personal affront on their not just on them, on their faith, but on their God. And well, what kind of servant of God am I if I just stand by and watch this and don't give it some kind of reaction? Well,
I don't know. As long as you're not burning my Bible.
The point is that you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. So, okay. So it could happen in other contexts, but I don't think that any Muslim who really was a sincere Muslim would want or not only wouldn't want, but could stand to watch a Quran being have something done to it. I don't know that too many Christians, as I recall, there was a piece of, I'm doing the scare quotes, the artwork where the crucifix was upside down in the jar of human urine.
It was right side up, but it was the urine part that was the
It was
problem.
the urine part. Well,
It's a big jar of urine, yeah.
Okay, whatever it was.
It's the artist's urine, so that makes it valid somehow.
Well, it's a statement. It's a statement that is saying something about what the crucifix represents, right? So if the crucifix represents,
I never did understand
Christ and the Christian religion and that whole Christian spirituality, then this is obviously denigrating it. It's just saying, like, I can put down your religion anytime I want to, as long as it's art. Yeah, well, okay, that's art, but you start saying, I have a hiring practice that says this religion makes you unable to get a job in this publicly funded pool, right? School districts are publicly funded, separation of church and state. Boy, I mean, you're just begging lots of hurt on yourself.
Right. And they got some amount of hurt because they've decided that, well, you're right, we were wrong.
25,000.
We were wrong.
25,000 actually, I think, sounds like they're getting off cheap, really.
Yeah.
But
so speaking of art,
art.
Do you think God is trans?
Not particularly, no. I do not.
I mean, I think that, from ancient times, we know what God's preferred pronouns are. He and him. So if he had a Twitter feed, it would say, he, him, or maybe it wouldn't say at all because,
So what I'm really surprised, I think the story here is not about, here's a church that is like taking this I guess you could say a relatively radical approach or view. Okay.
Right.
I'm surprised that their diocese is not coming down harder on them, because this was happening in a Catholic church, right?
Right. Straight up Catholic church.
And Pope Francis, hey, don't sign me up for his fan club, because, I don't sign me up for any Pope's fan club. But, I think he's spelled out pretty clearly what is the Roman Catholic Church's position on this.
Right.
And the fact that he talks about it, an ideology being dangerous. Okay. Whether you agree entirely with the Pope or not, doesn't matter. He should be able to speak on behalf of what his church teaches, not what his church, the church he is the Pope in. I mean, I don't want to make it sound, even Francis doesn't think that it's my church, I own it. That's not the kind of thing. He would definitely not make that claim, but he's a spokesperson. He's the first person who's going to weigh in on these things. And the fact that you got a Catholic Church that is putting on this display is, at the very least, surprising. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that they haven't been jumped on with both feet, that's surprising.
There's an investigation. They're investigating.
Oh.
They're investigating, and if media reports are accurate, then they would have concerns.
If media reports were accurate.
Yeah, if they're accurate. Now, maybe the reality is they want to go and talk to people at that church before they just take what the media says at face value, which is a very good idea. Just don't take what the media says. I do, when I do these stories, this is why sometimes it can be tedious. I do some of these stories, and what I have to do is is that really a thing? So I have to look it up again and then see if there's any contradicting information. You have no idea how many stories I've said, we're not even going to do this because the information is so contradictory across different outlets that it's like, yeah, right. There's no way to find out what's real here.
Get the story straight, guys.
Yeah, that would be a nice thing. So it's one of those, unfortunately, this is one of those places where I agree with Tucker Carlson. Okay, so what are we going to talk about on the other side of the break?
I thought we would talk about a reading that's coming up this next Sunday for us. It'll be, the sixth Sunday of Easter, and I want to look at the gospel lesson. And so if the listeners want to play along at home, find your Bible or your app open, and we're going to, when we come back, we're going to look at John chapter 14. So,
okay, well, with that, stick with us, and we'll be back with more Radical Grace Radio in just a moment.